Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Martello. We're going to look at section 2.1. So in this section, we're starting to talk about inequalities. So if you want to follow along, I'm in the textbook on page 54. So up here at the top of the page, this is really great graphic organizer right here. I would definitely suggest you write these words down in your notebook. So if you want to pause this video, or you can always go back to the online textbook and feel free to copy these down. But these are definitely some key phrases that you want to keep in mind when you're reading a sentence or reading a word problem and thinking about what inequality symbol goes along with it. So we know that this first symbol here is less than. You can also say is fewer than. For this next symbol, we know that this is greater than, or you can say is more than. Something that I notice, people get these two confused a lot. So there are a number of different ways you can remember which one is less than and which one is greater than, but this is how I remember it. So when I was learning in elementary school which hand was my left hand versus my right hand, I know that this was my left hand because it makes an L. So if I take my left hand L and I just turn it sideways a little bit, then it makes a less than symbol. So the less than symbol is on my left hand. So that's how I remember that this is less than. Then we have is less than or equal to. And then this is at most. You can say at most. For example, if you have at most $20 in your pocket, you can have 20 or less. You can also say is no more than. So if I have no more than $20, again, I can have $20 or less. Our last symbol is greater than or equal to, or you can say is at least. So if you have at least $20, then you can have 20 or more. Same thing is if you have no less than $20, you can have 20 or more. So these four is at most, is at least, is no more than, is no less than. Maybe these four are new to us, and these are four that we need to make sure that we keep practicing. So definitely write these down, maybe even make some flashcards and just test yourself on it. These are ones I do find that students tend to mix up, these ones. All right, so let's take a look at example 1. So we're gonna write a sentence as an inequality. So for part A, it says a number W minus 3.5 is less than or equal to negative 2. So let's go down here to our solution. So a number W minus 3.5, so W minus 3.5, is less than or equal to, there's our less than or equal to, and then negative 2. So you're just literally taking the words and turning it into an algebraic sentence. All right, let's do letter B. 3 is less than a number n plus 5. So 3 is less than, so there's our less than symbol, and then a number n plus 5, so n plus 5. Okay, let's do letter C. 0 is greater than or equal to twice the number x plus 1. So here 0 is greater than or equal to twice a number, so that means 2 times a number, and then plus 1. So there's our inequality. Let's go down here and let's try these monitoring progress questions together. So for monitoring progress 1, we have a number B is fewer than, so that would be less than 30.4. And that's it. That's all we had to do for that one. Okay, let's do monitoring progress 2. So we have negative 7 over 10 is at least. So I know is at least from my table up here. Is at least is greater than or equal to twice a number k, so 2 times k, and then minus 4. Okay, so that's just us practicing writing our inequalities from a sentence. Okay, we're gonna go over to the next page here. Let's take a look. Now we're going to talk about the solutions of inequalities. So the solution of an inequality is any solution that makes the inequality true. So there's not just one answer, like in an equation, there can be many, many answers for an inequality. So if you take the number and you plug it into the inequality and it makes the inequality true, then you know that it works. But if it makes the inequality false, then it's not a solution. So let's take a look at example 2. So we have x plus 8 is less than negative 4. Let's see if, is less than negative 3. Let's see if negative 4 is a solution. So we're looking at A, we're taking negative 4 and we're gonna plug it in for x. So this would be negative 4 plus 8 is less than negative 3, which gives me 4 is less than negative 3. No, 4 is not less than negative 3. That is false. So therefore, negative 4 is not a solution. Let's take a look at this next one. Negative 4.5x is greater than negative 21. Let's plug in negative 4 and let's see what happens. So negative 4.5 times negative 4 is positive 18. And yeah, positive 18 is greater than negative 21. That is true. So therefore, negative 4 is a solution to the inequality. I don't think we need to do more practice problems. You're just taking the number, plugging it in, and see if it makes the inequality true or false. I'm going to go to the next page. Okay, now we're going to talk about graphing our inequalities on a number line. So when we graph our inequalities, we're going to show the solution set on the number line. Okay, remember you want to use an open circle when it is not a solution. So if it's just less than or just greater than, then you cannot include that number. You leave it as an open circle. Use a closed circle, so you color the circle in if that number is a solution. So if it's less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to, then it can equal that number. You want to color that circle in. Then you're going to shade an arrow to the left or to the right to show where the graph continues in that direction. So you're shading the number line and you're shading the arrow in that direction. So let's take a look at these examples. For part A, we have y is less than or equal to negative 3. So we're going to go to negative 3 on our number line here. And because it's or equal to, then it can equal negative 3. So this is a closed circle. And then where y is less than or equal to negative 3 would be all of these numbers to the left. So I shade on the number line and I shade the arrow at the end of the number line here. So make sure you're shading on it. Let's look at B. We have 2 is less than x. So when I have an inequality like this, I personally don't like to look at the inequality in this way. I would rather rewrite this inequality and change it so that the variable is on the left side and the number is on the right side. So I think that that is a really good idea to use. Instead of saying 2 is less than x, that's the same thing as saying x is greater than 2. This for me is easier to realize where I should be shading. So I'm going to go to 2 on my number line. And because it's not equal to, this is an open circle because it cannot equal to. And then all the x's are greater than 2, so I'm going to shade all the numbers to the right and shade the arrow. Okay, then let's look at our last one, C. X is greater than 0, so we're going to go to 0 with an open circle, and we're going to shade to the right. Okay, so let's try some more examples like this just so that we can get the hang of it. I'm going to do monitoring progress number 7. So in number 7, I have B is greater than negative 8. All right, so I'm going to draw my number line here. And when you do your number line, you don't need to include that many numbers. I'm going to put negative 8 right here in the middle. And then maybe I'll go 2 numbers to the left and 2 numbers to the right, just so I can see a little bit on both sides. And sometimes people like to put the B at the end of the number line to label it, so I know that this graph is going to be about B. All right, so I'm going to put a circle on negative 8. It's going to be an open circle. And then because B is greater, I'm going to shade to the right. All these numbers here are greater. So I'm shading the line and I'm shading the arrow. Okay, let's do another one. We're going to do number 8. So number 8 here says 1.4 is greater than or equal to G. So like I said before, I don't like when the variable's on the right side of the inequality. I'm going to rewrite this inequality so it can be on the other side. So let's change it so that G is less than or equal to 1.4. Notice how when I changed it, it was pointing at the G and it's still pointing at the G. It was open to 1.4, it's still open to 1.4. Okay, let's graph this. So when I have decimals, you can kind of set it up however you want. If you want to do integers on here, that's fine. Or you can do decimals on here, that's fine too. I'm going to do decimals just because I think that's easier. So I'm going to put 1.4, and then we'll do 1.5, 1.6, and then I can do 1.3 and 1.2. And you can really set up your number line however you think is best. I'm going to put a circle on 1.4. It's going to be a closed circle because it can equal 1.4. And I'm going to shade to the left because it's less than or equal to 1.4. So I'm shading the number line and I'm shading the arrow. Okay, let's keep looking. We're going to go on to example 4 here. So in example 4, we are now going to write inequalities from the graph. So we're given these graphs and we're writing inequalities about them. So for our first inequality that's here, I see it's a closed circle on 48 and I see that it's shaded to the right. So I know that my first one is h, or you can use whatever variable you want, but they said h in this problem, is greater than or equal to 48. Let's look at ride B. We have an open circle on 52 and it's shaded to the left. So that means that h is less than 52. Notice how in both of these inequalities, how they wrote the variable on the left side. That's always the way to go with inequalities. Just like in that last example I just showed you, it's better to have the variable on the left side. So when you have the variable on the left, the inequality symbol makes more sense with your number line. So that's just a good hint to have. Okay, let's try monitoring progress number 11 here. So write an inequality that represents the graph. I can use whatever variable I want here. Let's use x. Notice how I'm putting the x first on the left side. Then I know I'm comparing it to -6, so I can put -6 here. And then I'm going to figure out what symbol goes here. It's a closed circle and it's shaded to the right, so that's greater than or equal to. Okay, and that's the idea of these questions here. We're going to look at one word problem. We're going to look at number 13. We're going to look at number 13. Okay, and I'm getting this from the 2.1 exercises in case you want to follow along. I'm now on page 58. So this is a word problem. We're going to look at number 13. Okay, so it says here that we have, on a fishing trip, you catch 2 fish. The weight of the first fish is shown. It says over here it's 1.2 pounds. The second fish weighs at least 0.5 pounds more than the first fish. Write an inequality that represents the possible weights for the second fish. Okay, so let's go ahead and start thinking about how I'm going to write my inequality. When I do this, I want to follow the same thing that we said before with writing equations from word problems, is we want to think about the current situation with the variable on the left. Then we're going to have our inequality symbol, whatever our inequality symbol is here, and then we're going to have the result or the total over here on the right. So make sure you're thinking about that when you're writing your inequality. Okay, so the current situation is I have 1.2 pounds for this fish. And I know that the second fish is gonna weigh at least 5 pounds more than the first fish. So this at least 0.5 pounds, that's going to be the inequality and the result. So let's remember at least. If I have at least $20, I can have 20 or more. So that would be greater than or equal to 0.5. Okay, let's think. How are we going to use this 1.2? Well, the second fish weighs more than the first fish. So if the first fish is 1.2 and the second fish weighs more, let's think about how I can get this. So maybe I need to do x minus 1.2. Let's see if that would work. So if the second fish is more and I subtract 1.2, then yeah, that would be at least 0.5. Okay, so make sure you're thinking about how you're writing your inequality. You're putting the variable on the left, your inequality symbol, and then what your inequality symbol, the result is over here on the right.